Hi, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's nice to see you again. I know I'm excited to taste through this lineup. Um, and I know a lot of people that are tuning in also bought the lineup as well, so we can all taste them together. But before we get into the wines, I did want to kind of just chat a little bit about your story and your family's story. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit of background with us.
Yeah, I always ramble about the story because you can make it long or short. I'll try to make it short, but um, basically, AmByth came to be because it's my dad, Philip. This is his dream and his um, always what he's wanted to do. So he grew up on a small farm in Wales, actually, outside a even smaller town of Portmadoc, on the Central Coast, and um, he like had that farming lifestyle. His whole family, his dad plowed with oxen, and they bartered for everything around there, and they were a small, tight-knit farming community. And I think that instilled something very positive to the effect that my dad always wanted to be near farming and making something of quality and being on that side. So from there, he went to England and then he traveled around a bit. He went to Australia for a bit. He graduated college actually in England with a hospitality degree. So he wanted to be close to food and wine um, and kind of slowly got away from his farming background. Um, but from Australia, went to South Africa, and that's where he got into the flooring industry. That's where he met my godfather and my mom, actually. And he got a tip from a friend of a great place to live, and that was Southern California back in the 60s. And he came over here with his brother, and they actually brought the flooring connections with them that they had in India and Nepal, and started flooring and oriental rug and imported rugs in Orange County in Costa Mesa, actually. And it was right place, right time. It was late 60s, early 70s. That's when Newport Coast was really starting to grow, and Newport Beach in general is just becoming just a place of good quality and money, I guess. And so he worked hard at it. He kept at it and had the flooring job for about 35 years before he said, I want to get back to my roots. I want to get back to farming. And he had quite a few friends that actually moved up to Paso, and so he had connections here in Paso Robles, and um, he knew he wanted to retire and do something small, semi-close to Newport, so he can still go down and work on the store there and come up here on the weekends and kind of dip his feet in, I guess, a little bit and get started. And so he found Paso Robles to be perfect. He used to bring grapes down to Costa Mesa and put stomp right in his garage and make wine with his wife, Mary. Make wine right in the garage, and he fell in love with it. So he really wanted to carry that on and find a place to farm up here, and found this perfect little parcel where AmByth is today in East Templeton. We're 10 minutes east of Templeton town, about 20 minutes south of Paso. And he was going to start it really small at first, but then he had a lot of people interested in it and interested in the fact that he was dry farming and the biodynamic side of it. He kind of jumped in with both feet, and instead of his little 5-acre retirement plan hobby vineyard, he turned it into a 17-acre kind of monster that it is now. And so now it's 42 acres, and it was dry farmed from the get-go. Each vine got 5 gallons of water from the start, and it was biodynamic from the get-go. It was kind of a perfect blank canvas to start his project. It was just cattle property before this. There was nothing sprayed, nothing tilled. It was just kind of wild land, which was kind of perfect for what he was planning. And then I came into the picture at some point there, but I've kind of helped out throughout like harvest times and times when it got really busy, and I would visit and kind of help out. And I kind of half grew up between Paso and Costa Mesa. We would come up here on the weekends and hang out with his friends in the wine industry and go to Lake Nashimeno and go to the coast and stuff. And so I've always loved this region. I've always felt like it's my home. So I went off. I guess I'll jump into my side now. Tell me if I'm blabbing too much.
No, this is perfect. This is perfect. Thank you.
So yeah, from Orange County, from Costa Mesa, I actually went to San Diego, and I did college down there, business management, emphasizing in recreation and tourism management. I wanted to do something outside and free from the binds of sitting in an office or a showroom. and I completed college. I actually met my wife down there, my wife-to-be, and we moved to Montana actually straight away, and we spent a couple years there, and we kind of bounced around for a bit. We moved to Hawaii, where my wife's from, and we worked at a food broker out there, the largest one for the island. So that was fun for a while. And then my dad came out and visited, and we talked a little bit. And then when he came home, about a couple weeks later, he gave me a call and said, I'm pretty much done with working. I've worked my butt off, and are you interested in this wine stuff at all? And I said, yeah, very much so. And so my wife and I moved back over here. It's been 8 years now. And he pretty much, I just followed him around for a couple years, and he taught me pretty much everything there is to know here. One of the first things I said when I got here was, should I go to Cal Poly, which is just down, half an hour away, and maybe look into viticulture, enology school or something? And he said, no, it will screw you up. So just learn from me and read some books and kind of do it that way, which I completely understand now. Yeah, like I said, it's been 8 years now. My wife and I have been here. We have a couple kids now, and kind of just keeping the dream afloat, just keeping it going.
That's awesome. Is your dad still living at the farm?
He actually lives in Costa Rica now most of the year.
Oh, wow. So cool. He's been all over the place.
Yeah, he fell in love with Costa Rica and how vibrant it is and how the culture and everything, and now he's finally putting his feet up down there and drinking rum by the pool. And
yeah, and leaving you with all the hard work.
Leaving me with the hard work. He asks for wine every month, and I send him down some, and we talk about it, and so he really enjoys drinking it, so that's for sure.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he visits and stuff, and we talk about blending and he's very involved with the business still. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you for sharing that bit of background. Speaking of wine, I think we should get into the first one. I'm guessing we're going to start with the orange wine, right?
Yeah, the Divinus.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the 2018. We call it Divinus. All our blends have Latin names. So Divinus, of course, means divine in Latin. And that's in ode to the classical Rhone blend that it is. So it's mostly Marsanne and then Viognier, Grenache Blanc, and Roussanne. This one we don't really consider an orange wine. We call it slightly orange just because of our other orange wines are really like skin macerated. This one is just slightly skin macerated with the Roussanne just overnight, so it just has a little straw color. You can see a kind of straw color, not like a basic white wine, but adds a little bit more tannin to it, a little more backbone. This one was all estate fruit. We always pick early in the morning, and we actually foot stomp everything that we have here, the old traditional way, and that gives us a good idea of determining what we're going to do with it, if we're going to keep it on the skins or if we're going to press it right away, or should we blend it with something if we feel like it needs something. But this one we decided to keep on the skins just for a couple hours and then press it. So it's pretty much, we consider it a white wine. And we aged it in terracotta, actually Italian terracotta amphora for 1 year, on the lees for 1 year, and then we racked it. Always during descending moon, so the sediment is filtered out mostly. As you can see, there's still sediment in there in that bottle, but we don't filter anything here. We feel that kills the wine, as well as adding sulfites and things like that. So yeah, this is the Divinus.
Awesome. I do have a few questions, just going back to everything you just said. So first of all, could you give a little bit of background on what is an orange wine? I think a lot of people probably tuning in have maybe never tried one or never heard of it, or they have and just maybe don't know what it is. And maybe why you would not call this an orange wine, I think would be interesting too.
Okay. Yeah, orange wine is basically a skin macerated white grape. Skin maceration just means that the juice is somehow pressed out of the grape. In our way, we foot stomp it, so it actually extracts a little bit of the juice, and then it sits on the skins. So the skin is what gives a wine its depth, its color, its tannin, a lot of other nuances that the skin gives to the juice. And so an orange wine is basically like a full-blooded red wine, but made with white grapes. So the color actually comes out of the skin, the tannin, and you kind of have a whole new genre of wine, because white wine is usually you pick the grape and you press it right away and it's white, translucent. Honestly, not much to it. There's that could be an argument in itself, but we really like our orange wines here, and a little skin maceration just feels like it goes a long way. It gives that wine a little backbone, a little more flavor. And then, does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. That was perfect. But I totally understand what you're saying. Like, it's got some texture to it, but it's not as maybe intense as like a full orange wine would be. So this one doesn't see as much skin fermentation or skin contact, is what you're saying.
Right. Right. And this is the only skin contact was actually the Roussanne, which is only 11% of the blend.
Oh, wow.
And that was just overnight. So it's dry farm grapes, so thicker skinned, just a lot more extraction coming from the skins. So that's why it's slightly orange, but the rest were only pressed pretty much an hour to 2 hours after being foot stomped. So that's why it's kind of like not exactly an orange wine, because we have like full-blooded orange wines like our Sauvignon Blanc or our Riesling or Grenache Blancs. We keep on the skins for like 10 months.
Oh, wow.
So those are like real like orange wines, but yeah.
Okay, the second question I had about this wine, you mentioned that it's either aged or fermented, I don't remember, in amphora. So could you just explain like why you would maybe choose to age it in amphora and what that kind of does to the wine?
Yeah, amphora is the ones that we have are made in outside of Florence in Italy. It's 100% terracotta clay, which is really known for aging wine appropriately. It's got dolom in it, which is the white mineral that you actually see on the inside terracotta, and that actually makes it really a permeable aging vessel. So when you age wine in it, it actually lets the wine breathe, which is, an oak barrel does allow a wine to breathe, but an amphora lets it breathe a lot more because it's actually a lot more porous. And an amphora also doesn't give any flavors either. So it's called a neutral aging vessel, but it allows it to breathe. Concrete would be a good example of like a neutral vessel, but concrete doesn't really allow a wine to breathe because the pores are really tight and it's really thick. I actually have sitting here in the winery. So there are terracotta
Oh,
amphoras, or
wow.
those guys that
Yeah, those are super
behind,
cool.
behind that big white one. And they really just give a different flavor to the wine. I always describe it as a rusticity. It is really like a rusticness, or another one I always use is happy oxidation. So there's no winemaker out there that would be uh, so open to say that their wine is oxidized, and this is not oxidized, but it has seen that air for so long that it gives it kind of a softness on the palate. And I'm so bad at describing flavors, but that rusticity, it's like that kind of like softness. Yeah. Maybe you can
Yeah, I
describe
would
it
say,
better.
no, I totally agree. I think softness is a great way to explain it. It's not like vinegary or sharp at all. The acid's not too high. It's very smooth.
Mm.
I think that the like oxidative properties kind of add a level of complexity. So you're not just smelling like apples and flowers. You're also getting like this like nuttiness and this kind of like earthiness that you usually don't get on like a conventional white wine. Um, so I also wanted to say that all of your wines are just grape juice, right? Fermented grape juice. Um,
Fermented grape juice, yeah. No acid correction, or no fillers of any kind.
Yeah. So you're not adding anything. You're just growing the grapes, making them into wine, which I think is really awesome and kind of hard to come across. So that's definitely something I want to emphasize for people that are watching.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but yeah, this is absolutely delicious. Like I said, if you're not familiar with orange wines, for people that are tuned in, this is a very approachable. I mean, like Gelert said, it's not a full orange wine because it sees so little skin contact, but it's a very approachable and easy drinking wine. What are some of your favorite food pairings or like go-to food pairings for this wine?
Um, for this one, I would say like we always have like our orange wines, or even our white wines, the oxidized white wines. We always have it like with Thai food or something spicy. Seafood is insanely good with this. Oysters and any kind of fish is amazing with this one. But yeah, I would lean towards that like Thai food, spicy food.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
That's
Like
what
when
I.
I first tried it, I pictured myself like drinking it with some sort of Thai food. So I think that would be perfect.
Mhm.
We do have a question about how many orange wines you guys produce.
That really matters what year it is.
Yeah.
'Cause, it matters how much fruit we get off the estate. Being dry farmed, we're totally at Mother Nature's wrath, I guess. And so if we have enough, we'll make more. But right now we've been making like 3 or 4 every season. Our Sauvignon Blanc we actually get from our friends down in Solvang and Coquelicot Vineyard, which is all organic on the San Ynez River. We've been making that now for this would be the 6th season. And then we do a Riesling. We've been making orange wine since the beginning, but we have a Grenache Blanc. We've done Marsanne. We've done a lot of different blends with the Rhones, with the Rhone varieties. But we try to have like 3 or 4 on our list at a time. Right now, we only have one other, which is the Decorous, which is actually Viognier-based Rhone blend, which is a lot more orange than this one. Um, Kind of tasting really amazing.
I think I tried that one when I visited in February. I'm pretty sure I
Yeah, I
tried
think
that
we
one.
we just bottled it.
Yeah.
'Cause that's a new release for us. We just
Oh,
released it
okay.
to
Okay, cool.
Wine Club.
Oh,
So
that's exciting.
that's
Nice.
the one that we have right now. But come July, September, we'll have Sauvignon Blanc, Riesling, and we'll actually have a Marsanne Viognier estate blend too. So we're gonna have some fun orange wines coming up.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. With that, I think we should head into the second wine. So let me know which one you want to do first.
Probably the cab.
Okay. And I did want to just talk about your dry farming a little bit more. Maybe if you could just explain kind of what that means and how it's sustainable. I mean, tomorrow is Earth Day, so that's kind of why we thought it would be fitting to have a live with you the day before Earth Day. So if you could just kind of explain that a little bit for people that are tuning in.
Dry farming is simply put no irrigation. So it really is the rainfall that we get during the wintertime is all the water the vines get. We do not irrigate at all. So we don't have any drip pipes out there or anything like that. Dry farming, you don't find a lot in America, which is such a sad thing. Even a place like that actually gets rain, like Sonoma and Napa. There's a few places. There's a few places in Paso too, but not a lot. And we feel like it is the true expression of where it's from. If you're watering it, you're already changing the everything of the grape, and basically you're watering down the grape. A lot of our wines are real terroir based and full of flavors, full of we always say it's like concentrated juice, and it's just it's the real McCoy. It's the real deal.
Yeah, I think juicy would be like the first word I would use to describe your wines. That's kind of the first thing that comes to mind. But just on the dry farming too, that's kind of why you're at the hands of Mother Nature every year, right? Because you don't know how much rain you're going to get. You don't know what happens in the vineyard. And that probably has something to do with your small case production too, right? So how many cases are you guys putting out every year?
Well, recently, yeah, just because the drought that we went through in California, it kind of ended, but never really ended. About 3 years ago, we had that 5-year drought, and that was the worst time for us, yields wise. So yeah, we basically, every time it rains in the wintertime, we're basically doing a rain dance outside celebration. So we shoot for 1,500 cases every year, but the last few years it's definitely been a little lower than that, just because of Mother Nature being herself and not really giving us too much rain. So
yeah, and I think that's something that should really be respected. I mean, with your winemaking, this is your lifeline too, right? So you're relying on Mother Nature and you're not intervening at all. So you're kind of just letting Earth give you what it gives you, and I guess hoping for the best, right?
yeah, pretty much. It's real sustainability.
Yeah.
You see other vineyards around here just pumping, an average is 6 gallons of water per vine per week. And we look out here and we can see, I won't name any names, but there's a 250 acre vineyard right next to us with not one flower growing on it. It's kind of really sad to see. They don't spread any compost or anything like that. So, a bee is not able to land on one thing in that whole 25 to 250 acres and survive. So, our property is just completely the opposite of that, and it kind of lives with the natural environment around us. Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
So I was hoping you could introduce this next wine, and with it, I would like to talk more about what you just brought up. So like the biodiversity at your vineyard, and how that kind of works with the winemaking and with the grape growing. But this is the second wine that we just poured, the Cabernet Sauvignon. So if you want to give a little intro to this one.
Yeah, the Cabernet. So 2015 was pretty much the second to last year of drought, and we were looking at a really dismal vintage. So we actually called up some friends. Being biodynamic in California, there's really not too many of us. So this is Kathy De Andrea's place up in San Miguel, which is just north of Paso, which is great. It's around the corner for us. and it's called Pine Hawk Vineyards, and they grow Syrah and Cab. And we were lucky enough to get quite a bit of Cab from them in 2015. We got some in 14 as well. And being not our fruit, we were allowed to experiment a little bit more than we would. So we actually have half of this wine was actually, the juice was on the skins for 1 year in Australian vitrified clay. So it's and then the other half was in neutral oak and terracotta. So it was in 3 different aging vessels, half of it being on the skins for a year. And then we pressed it, combined everything, and let it sit for another year in those aging vessels. So it's a very different Cab because it was in the vitrified clay egg, which is actually this guy right in front of me.
So
these are actually from Australia. These are 675-liter eggs. Wow. And they, using the terracotta and the vitrified clay and a very neutral oak barrel, there wasn't much manipulation in the fact that it's a neutral aging environment. So you can actually taste the Cab in this. You're not tasting like vanilla and smoke and all these things that barrels lend to wines. And I think that's what's really fun about this is like Cab is a really tasty fruit. It doesn't have to be like all raspberry and cough syrupy.
Or like jammy. I hate when they're too jammy, Like a little bit too much, like in that residual sugar too, where it's just like, you're going to get a headache in a couple hours. Yeah.
This is like a really nice Cab. I always say our version of Cab because it is very different. It's dry. There is no residual sugar in this. There's no oak on it, and it's also really low in alcohol. This one was 12.2%, so we purposely picked it earlier to get that low alcohol, and it's preserved the acidity in it as well. So it's actually a Cab that just goes really well with food. The tannins in it are really nice because of that skin maceration for 1 year, and it's just think it's a really, really interesting and delicious Cab.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever come across a Cab that is so easy drinking. I find that sometimes they're just a little bit too jammy. The alcohol is so high, the tannins are so intense, but this is so well balanced. I feel like I could sit and drink the whole bottle without pairing it with any food. It's just so easy drinking. I like that you said that it actually tastes like a Cab because I get some of that like pepperiness from Cabernet that I feel like is usually overshadowed by oak, like you said, and those vanilla and oaky flavors. So this is just like the perfect expression of Cabernet. But yeah, I did want to ask you more about kind of like the biodiversity. So I know that in the winery, you're not doing anything to it. You're putting it in one of those eggs or an amphora. You're not over oaking it. So if you could talk about a little bit in the vineyard, kind of the biodiversity and what's happening in the vineyard. I know you guys aren't doing much to kind of change anything. So if you could just talk about that. And I know you guys have a ton of animals. So if you could talk about those as well.
Yeah. So we do we do practice biodynamics here. The animals are a very integral part to that as being basically the fertilizers of the property and attracting nature spirits, we call them, making the property whole and not missing that void, which other places do. And we're very lucky here. We didn't have to cut any trees down or anything for the vineyard. Being on the east side, all our south and southeast facing hillsides are actually just grassland. And then our north-facing slopes are oak forests. So we have 40% of the property just untouched, which is mostly oak forest, but then we have some open grassland as well. And we're able to rotate, graze the animals that way, and then also just keep intact the natural environment around here. So those oak forests and that extra land that we didn't touch at all is left wild for a reason. It's left to make it so bees can actually exist here, and certain insects can be in the forest and attract lizards and gophers and squirrels, and those attract the hawks and the owls and everything. So it's just this symbiosis that we have with the environment around us, instead of just killing everything and starting fresh and having like a super clean environment. It's actually a more natural environment, which it's supposed to be. And if you have it like that, then the vineyard kind of takes care of itself. And we've seen that here. We have the animals, and they fertilize, they eat the weeds, they keep the grass nice and short, and they're constantly pooping and peeing and giving compost to the land, giving that humus buildup, which is really important for the soil, and actually having living microbial soil and things that exist because one another, rather than just replacing it with synthetic or man-made things that just doesn't really give an environment to grow properly in. Also kills the terroir and where the grape is coming from. So we have the diversity of the forest, but then we also have our planted fruit trees. We have almonds and walnuts, and we have apple trees and persimmons, pomegranates, fig trees, and they all grow around the houses. We have olive trees actually scattered throughout the vineyard. We have about 500 olive trees, and they're all Spanish varieties. Again, those attract different insects that are beneficial for the vines and their insects. So it's kind of it's an environment that fosters growth rather than just not creating a livable environment for those microorganisms to do their thing and to create an environment for the vines to flourish.
Right, and that's what's allowing you to not add any pesticides or any chemicals in the vineyard either, right?
Right, it kind of just takes care of itself. We have praying mantises in the vines, eating the leafhopper, and ladybugs galore out there because we don't kill everything. We have wasps and ladybugs and bees, and it's like they all take care of those pessimistic bugs. If you spray insecticides or pesticides, you're creating a sterile environment, which might be nice because humans can control it, but it's not sustainable at all. So this way, hopefully, we can farm here forever. That's what AmByth means, and we're hoping to create like a footprint of what sustainability actually is.
Yeah, that's great. And that's what AmByth means, you mean that it's a direct translation to forever, right?
Yeah, it's two words, so forever, AmByth in Welsh.
It's Welsh, right? Yeah, because your father is Welsh. That's super cool. Awesome. Well, I think we should maybe get into the final wine. So this is the last one for those of you watching. How do you pronounce it? Is it Adamo?
Adamo.
Adamo. And what does that mean?
It's Latin, to fall in love with, or to find pleasure in. Basically because it is the GSM blend, which is in France. GSM is a very common Rhone blend. It's been made for centuries, and we have Grenache Syrah Mourvèdre growing on the property. And so this is 54% Grenache, 36 Syrah, 10% Mourvèdre. And it's just a blend that we've done for a while. This is the 2017. So we actually had this half in Italian terracotta, half in neutral oak. And then we aged it for 21 months. We picked the fruit. We foot stomped it, of course, like we always do. And we left them on their skins separate for about a week or two during fermentation, and then we pressed it and we co-blended it. And they finished their fermenting and their stage of turning into wine in their aging vessels. What did I say, for 21 months on this one. And again, kind of lower in alcohol. It's actually a little higher for us. It's 12.96. And that's probably because of the Syrah on that one. Syrah is really one of those varieties around here that just explodes in sugars if it gets warm. And every September, October, it gets warm here. So
yeah. Yeah, this is another one that I would describe as juicy. I love that you used that word because it really is. And I like that you mentioned that biodynamic farming is and natural winemaking is more of an expression of the terroir, right? Which just means that's where the grapes are coming from. This is a true expression of a California GSM. There's nothing added, nothing taken away. So it's just kind of a pure expression of what wine from California should taste like. So I really appreciate that. I also really enjoy the lower alcohol. I feel like sometimes when it's too high, that's kind of all you're paying attention to is that warming like in your throat or in your chest. But these are all so well balanced that you're not necessarily just paying attention to the alcohol, right? So again, with the tannins on this one too, very, very smooth. This is another one that you could just enjoy on its own. Doesn't necessarily need food to go with it.
Yeah, this is a very approachable wine. It's something that we open up to people that are like a little skeptical about natural wine and maybe haven't tried it. We kind of, this one and the Cab is ones that we kind of get our foot in the door in a lot of places and in people's minds. Hopefully get some to change their mind and be like, wow, natural wine is really good and it's fruity and it's exciting. The GSM just works, and with our terroir and our limestone here, that acidity just shines through and super mineral. But it just still has that fruitiness that's just is pleasurable and it's approachable.
Yeah, it's got some spiciness to it too, which probably from the Syrah, but overall it's just super unique and really well balanced, like I said. And you guys, I wanted to bring up, you guys are the only certified biodynamic winery in Paso Robles, right?
Winery, yeah. There's a few other places that grow biodynamically, but we are the only ones that grow and keep it going in the winery.
Yeah, for sure. So the certification it can happen in the vineyard and also in the winery, right?
Yeah, and it's just like organics. You got to be really careful with the wording when you're looking for wines. There's made with organic grapes, which does not mean that wine is organic at all. It could be the most manipulated wine ever, but maybe the grapes were grown properly. That's all great and grand, but the wine might be the most craziest synthesized thing on the planet. But biodynamics is a lot better. It's not super strict regulations. We take it a step further and actually use no filtering or sulfites, which you are allowed to use a little bit of both in biodynamics, and kind of keeping it clean. And yeah, I think.
Do you find that the sulfites would even be necessary to preserve the wine? Because I'm drinking a 2015 of one of your wines, and I think I've tried like a 2013 of one of your wines, and it doesn't taste old at all. So do you feel like the sulfites are even maybe something that would be necessary to preserve a wine longer? I mean, I feel like these wines could still age for quite a long time.
Yeah, it would be really interesting, and my father did like side-by-side comparisons of adding a little bit of sulfites to the wine and then some with absolutely nothing. And I know he likes the non-sulfited wines a lot better. I haven't played around with sulfites myself, so I can't say, but this wine just tastes very different to me than conventional wines, and I'm still learning, so I'm still pushing myself to try everything that's put in front of me, which is maybe not good, but you know, there's something in natural wine that's just, you know, it's like kombucha. There's live bacteria in there. And it's not necessarily a kombucha flavor. You can find some of that kind of bacterial flavor in some of our wines, but it's just alive and zippy, and I think it's good for your gut. It's actually a really good, really good wine for your mind and your soul, basically. And there's definitely a difference when you taste the two. So it'd be interesting to do a side-by-side comparison of our fruit. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, I like what you brought up about how this tastes very different than conventional wine too, because I totally agree. These taste completely different than conventional wine, but these are all so approachable that someone who might be nervous about natural wine, since it has such a like weary reputation, would absolutely enjoy all of these wines and all of the wines I've tried from you. So these are just really delightful and delicious wines. So thank you for sharing them with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I will just see if there's any other questions here.
Zippy.
Yeah, someone said zippy is good. AmByth is a slice of heaven. I totally agree. It's beautiful. Oh, if you get a chance to visit, definitely visit.
What's up, Ashley?
I was going to ask, your tasting room is open, or I guess it's not a tasting room, but you are open for tastings right now. So if somebody wanted to come and visit, how could they book a tasting with you?
So right now we're doing tours at the winery and vineyard, which is kind of an in-depth explanation of our farming theories and our practices outside in the actual vineyard. And then the second half is in the winery, where we talk about our winemaking and our aging vessels, and talk about our processes in here, or our lack of processes, I should say. And then that ends with a tasting right in the winery, usually with me, my wife, or our good friend Ange, which is the cellar hand and helper of all things around here right now. And then we also have an open tasting room, which we opened last June in Templeton town, which is just 10 minutes west of here, right off the 101, right in the middle of Templeton. We're open Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. And we have flights down there on offer. We have 2 different tasting flights right now, six or seven wines each one. And then we do wine by the glass down there. We're right in Nature's Touch Market and Nursery, and we're actually literally outside in the nursery, so it's a really beautiful place to just hang out and have a glass right in the middle of town, in between some properly grown plants. So it's wonderful.
It's very fitting, I feel like, for you guys.
Yeah.
Somebody had a good question about what role does the moon play in biodynamic winemaking?
Oh, the moon. So biodynamics takes into account the cosmos, not just the moon. So it's kind of a misconception that everything's based off the moon. It's actually based on where constellations are in relation to the Earth. Because Mars actually has an influence on us. And the belief is that all planets and everything that happens in the cosmos is related to us. So there's a biodynamic calendar. It's really interesting to look at. We use the Mariah Tune calendar. There's a few different versions out there. But it will basically tell you what days are good for transplanting, what days are good for picking the fruit or picking root vegetables or pruning days. And that is, like I said, based on the cosmos and the relations of where the planets are, not necessarily the moon and the luminosity of it. There is transplanting time, which is all based on the moon and its gravity, its gravital force on us, and but it doesn't do with the luminosity either. It actually it is about the ascending and descending moons. So it's actually how far and how close the moon is to us. It actually goes in waves like this. So there's times where the moon is a little closer, and that means there's going to have a stronger gravity pull, and where it's further, there's less. So we'll actually use the biodynamic calendar for everything we do here. Racking the wine, descending moon is when the sediment is actually compacted it on the aging vessel the most that it can be. So when we rack it, when we take the juice off the sediment, it's actually really clean compared to when we do it on an ascending moon, which the juice is almost in turmoil and there's a lot of sediment floating around. And it's kind of cool to actually see that with your own eyes. And, I've done some experiments where I've racked on ascending moon just to see what happens. And it's like, sure enough, it's not as clean as it would be if we just waited for descending moon. So
interesting.
Yeah, you could talk about biodynamics for days.
Yeah. So what is happening right now, end of April, based on the biodynamic calendar? What do you guys have on the agenda this week?
That's a good question. Right now we're labeling this week, so I'm not really I'm not touching any wine book yet. We just had wine club stuff going out, and we're still busy labeling. So we're doing some thinning in the vineyard on some leaf days, and actually fruit and flower days as well. So we're actually out in the vineyard and we're thinning the vines, which means we're picking off buds so it can concentrate its growth on where we want it to be, so we can have nice big clusters instead of a bunch of tiny ones. And kind of looking ahead, next descending moon, we're definitely going to be doing some racking and some more bottling coming up. Yeah. Maybe today's a fruit day because the wine is tasting really good.
Yeah, I was going to say there's certain days when the wine is supposed to taste better. I feel like it just tastes good all the time, but if today's a fruit day, we'll go with that. And then Clay asked, how long does the foot stomping usually take?
Good question. It's it matters how much fruit we have. We do all volunteer picking here, so it turns into a party. And sometimes, if one bin can take 20 minutes, if you were to do it slowly, we foot stomp really, really gently. We don't want to press all the liquid out of the grape. We actually want it to sit there for a little bit. It's really good for the grape to actually start fermenting inside the grape when it's whole, rather than just pressing all the juice out and then putting it all back on the skins, which some places do. So we feel like if we keep some of those grapes intact and do a gentle foot stomp, it just creates a really nice bouquet and florality on the wines.
Awesome. Just going to do one more check for any other questions. A lot of people are just raving about visiting your winery and what a great experience it is. So I've done it myself. Highly recommend if you are going to Paso anytime soon. But I think that pretty much sums it up. Thank you so much for tasting through these wines with me. I'm excited to enjoy the rest of them tonight. And thanks for breaking down your background in biodynamics and organics and everything like that. This was great.
Thanks so much for having me, Lexi. Let's do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, for sure. Have a great evening. I will talk to you soon.
Right on. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.